how did you get picked to be an instructor? So the basic school, tell people, for people that don't know much about the military, the Marine Corps, what the basic school is and how they choose the instructors for the basic school.
So it's 6 months. So it's the school. So you're commissioned. Everybody's a commissioned lieutenant, but all you've done is gone through OCS or gone to the Naval Academy. You show up at the basic school, and they, every walk of life has gotten, through OCS or the Naval Academy. You show up at TBS to go through a 6-month training program that essentially trains you to be a rifle platoon commander. Doesn't matter if you're a pilot or artillery guy or logistician. We all learn the same fundamental skills of how to lead a platoon. The way they ultimately select your MOS, if you're an aviator, you showed up with a contract to go to Pensacola after you graduate from basic school, no matter what. For the rest of us, they break you down into thirds: top third, middle third, bottom third, all based on your overall academic and leadership, peer evaluation, instructor evaluation. So just this combined score. And then the top of each third in sequence gets their first pick with the available jobs or positions that are, can be there. So for example, if the infantry had, call it 18 slots available, the top 6 people in the top third, the top 6 people in the middle third, and the top 6 in the bottom third could get their pick. So the only way you can determine your destiny in terms of your MOS that you want is by being probably in the top 10 of the top third. Otherwise, it's a total. Yeah. So that's just how, and that's for every single job. Human intelligence, ground intelligence, tanks, artillery, infantry, all of those, even supply. And so that's why there's some studs that found themselves in the bottom third of the top third, that there were no more infantry combat arms positions available. And unfortunately, and this is all very intentional. We need to spread the talent across every, MOS in the Marine Corps. And I still think that's what they're doing to this day. But so to get selected, and I don't know how it goes, but I know it's not, they just don't take a warm body. That you have to get, recommended, and there's a hand selection. And I think back in the day, at least, they would take 1 or 2 infantry officers per battalion, just because you don't need that many instructors. But that period, and it may sound odd, and again, it kind of had to do with, it was enduring freedom. We hadn't gone to Iraq yet, hadn't been a bunch of bloody noses yet. So it was still call it kinetic, or, only a few people, I think a few people died in total. So coming back to California and then seeing other people in Afghanistan and seeing the Rangers up in Afghanistan, that's when things got real. But what's interesting is the emotion. I didn't want to be in the United States. It was like, I'm missing out. Yeah. And I need to be back over there, which is hard to tell your wife. But emotionally, that's what I know I went through, and a lot of other Marines, and I'm sure soldiers went through, is you miss that, however hard you miss that. And it continues. And then as I, came back, then there's all these talks of Iraq, and it's like, shit, I'm going to miss that too. I've got 3 years to be here at the basic school. It's hard to understand and even describe why and how that feels, but that probably would, for me, that was the hardest part of the war. And I mean, just this period, and lots of emotions going on. Training lieutenants, you become connected with them, and that's part of being a good instructor and a good leader. And you know everything about them, and you know what makes them tick and why, so you can select them or train them the best. And lots of them didn't come home, and you made these guys. I mean, I wish Blake Story was here with me. I mean, he came through. Toby Flynn came through while I was, in fact, Toby, I was reading through some old emails, a scrapbook. Toby was emailing my father early November timeframe about his application to OCS. And I remember he was like, John's with the 15th Mutant. And my dad was like, yeah, but we don't know where he is, but he was supposed to be notified in early December. But it's just funny to see where we were. But Toby came through when I was at the basic school, not in IOC. And you could imagine, Toby and I could barely, sit in any environment without like laughing or chuckling. So it's like, I get up on the platform and I teach this thing. Just don't even look at me.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't be the captain that starts giggling or something because you asked a dumbass question. So
Yeah.
just be cool, please. But I have to commend Toby, um, and Blake, and many others like them, that they knew how bad it was.
Yeah.
There were already people that were not coming home, and they still had the courage to go into the Marine Corps, and they knew that it was inevitable. They were going to
I
go.
asked both those guys, I said, because they were both unlike, I think unlike you, they both joined
They
after
did.
9/11. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, which I think there should be like a name for the group of men and women that did that, because there's a lot of folks, and you and I know a lot of them. And, that's a totally, I mean, they, unlike you and Nick Calt, they joined knowing
Yeah.
that they were going to war, and that they were going to a hot war, not a war that, I mean, I know you were in a hot war, but like you're talking about,
No.
people punching back.
Their
Yeah.
experience was extremely different than mine.
Yeah.
You know, and to know that, and there was enough of this, there was enough bad things when they signed up. So they have my full respect. God bless them.
Well,
'Cause
John, let me ask you this, because so you're an instructor for Marine lieutenants, and literally, I mean, that must have been a huge responsibility, especially during the middle of a hot war, because you're essentially training them how to survive and how to make sure they can keep their men alive when they're over there too. So how do you train people that are already, I mean, if you're in the Marine Corps and you're a second lieutenant, the chances are you're already a pretty good leader, or you already know something about leadership, or you wouldn't be there to begin with. So what was your approach when you are literally a leader teaching other leaders in the Marine Corps?
I try to be concise. I think on the whole, we tried to create the most realistic environment that we could, that the lieutenants they didn't realize it was practice or as play. We try to create these real environments with live rounds and real explosions and real injuries, so that we could put them in this situation and watch or evaluate them and then coach them. I mean, everything, there was always an exercise, an evaluation, and then the coaching. But I think that the number one is that we would just try to create the most realistic environment. And we changed the curriculum. We would then go spend 2 or 3 weeks out in the Mojave Desert at 29 Palms. It was all live fire, artillery, tanks, jets, everything that we could afford to do just to prepare them for Iraq. And then we would go spend a week at the Mountain Warfare Training Center up in the mountains. Whether it was the winter, whether it was the summer, it was always hard. It was focused on small unit leadership and how to take care of your Marines. So all throughout this, I mean, there's plenty of leadership discussions, but I think the leadership discussions happen on a moment by moment, day by day basis as you're coaching and you're mentoring these. And mentoring is probably the better word.
Yeah.
It's not training as much as it is mentoring these guys. And if you see a lieutenant that's not, he's not influencing his Marines the right way, even though they were lieutenants, you pull them aside, and kind of like a father-son. That father-son is the best relationship where, I can describe that you can visualize what that looked like. And that is where things get hard. And I remember, I think it was my first casualty. One of my lieutenants was J.J. Robleski, and he was in my platoon at the basic school. And he had an aviation contract. He wanted to fly Cobras. Just cool cat, New Jersey guy, thick accent, newly married, but he was it. And all the Marines, all lieutenants just absolutely respected JJ. So ultimately I convinced him. I was like, dude, drop this. You don't want to go be a Cobra pilot. You are made to be an infantry leader. You're going to be successful. So he dropped his aviation contract and became a grunt. And I went to IOC at the same time. He was a student at IOC. So he was my first class. Trained him up. JJ did great. I think he graduated, if not first, he was second. And then month or two later, he took a round through his handset on his radio in the N bar, and he was, KIA. He was instant. And it was just,
Mm.
it's April the 6th. It was so tough to have, you get so close to these guys, to have lost him. And there's many others, but you're stuck here in the United States. You're stuck in Quantico, and it's and where we lived there, in most of the areas around Quantico, all the families are in the DOD or the DOJ, they're FBI. So you go to work every day, you train, combat and war fighting. Then you come home, and then all the wives have been talking all day, and then all the husbands are on the back deck and they're talking, whether it's me. My next door neighbor was FBI. There's FBI, 3 houses down. So you never got away from it.